All right, let's start off this segment with a correction. As always, I fucked up something on my last stream, and as such, I need to correct myself to maintain my journalistic integrity. And my journalistic integrity this time was compromised because I made the mistake of saying that the pointed thing on the counter of Jason Thor Hal, aka Pirate Software, aka the Darth Moldavius Fig Tree, aka Malding Faggotry, had a pointed animal cock dildo on his counter because, as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that would make sense in this man's bathroom counter that looks like this is an animal cock dildo. That is not what this is. It is an IKEA terracotta garden gnome. For whatever reason, these things are iconic. I have been to IKEAs in multiple countries. I have never seen a terracotta gnome before. I assume that maybe they only sell them in Sweden, and it's a local Swedish interest. But apparently that's what that is. However, even though I do agree that this is the IKEA terracotta gnome, I disagree that this is not a dildo. Because, chat, I invite you to look quite deeply into this. And you can see that a couple inches down past the tip of the gnome hood, in air quotes, for whatever reason, the clay pottery that makes up the terracotta gnome is darker. For whatever reason, it's darker a couple inches past the tip all the way down to the base. Now, what could possibly have caused this miscoloration of a terracotta IKEA garden gnome localized entirely in Malding Faggotry's bathroom? I will leave it up to your imagination, chat. There's a hamster in the room and I don't want to scare him. So, that is my correction. But let's get into the schmeat of what's happened. So, on the last episode, it had been, I think, only a couple days, or even the same day, that a guy called Accursed Farms, aka Ross Scott, had posted a video lamenting the failure, the doomed project that he had undertaken to try and get some common sense gamer regulation passed in the European Union by engaging in the democratic process. In particular, although he was not a European himself, he had found some Europeans willing to submit to the European Union a petition. And the European Union has a very interesting process by which, if 1 million votes acquired and distributed across enough countries are collected in support of a petition, the petition becomes legally binding for the European Committee or the Commission. And they have to start undertaking negotiations with the industry to try and enact those reforms in a way that both meets the requests of the petition and then also the demands and needs of the industry. And as always, these democratic negotiations leave both sides deeply unhappy, but that is the process. And we as a democratic country, as technically a democratic republic, but we as a democratic country, we call ourselves a democratic country. We as a democratic country, we understand that democracy, as Winston Churchill once said, democracy is the worst form of government after all other governments which have been tried. So our boy Ross Scott decided that he would try and get this petition off the ground to try and get some regulations in the EU, because knowing that they would be passed in the EU would positively impact gamers all across the world, including here in the United States of America. However, despite collecting nearly 500,000 signatures across the European Union, our boy, our hero, the Jedi himself, Ross Scott of Accursed Farms, encountered something he did not suspect. Because when you enter the political fray, you may think you have perfectly good intentions that nobody could ever possibly shake a twig at. What he did not know is that Darth Moldavius Fig Tree was waiting and lurking to spring a trap on him that he could not have seen coming. And Moldavius did indeed slander his petition. All Ross Scott wanted for his Stop Killing Games petition was to have the European Union pass a regulation that says if you want to sell a game in the EU, the sales agreement for that game, if and only if it contains online services, must explain their intentions for what to do after they sunset a service. Because it doesn't matter how big a game is, eventually there will come a day where that game has to shut down if it is always online. There is no company on the earth that will remain on this earth forever. So therefore, with 100% assurance, you know that every live service game that currently exists will one day be permanently closed. And if there is no generosity on behalf of the multi-billion-dollar corporations that publish these live service games, then that game simply ceases to exist. And there are many games out there that were live services that people paid a full price of a video game for, that they can never ever play again because the server is gone and there is no server binary for them to self-host and no way for them to play LAN. So that's all he wanted. Was I think not even necessarily a mandate that they publish the server code, but the sales agreement, just as a starting point, must say something about what they intend to do after the game sunsets, which could just be nothing at all, but it has to be there in the agreement. So that's sort of like how it works. He tried to explain this, that it's a negotiation. You're going to have people who are consumer advocates who want their maximalist position, which would be that you have to distribute the code of the server even so that people can run it on their own computers. And then you would have the industry position, which is that we shouldn't be forced to give out intellectual property. And then the European Union, through rounds of negotiation over a very long time, comes to a middle ground, as I said, that makes nobody happy. So it's sort of this lengthy, boring process that's hard to understand, which is why when Jason Hall, who made no attempt to understand what the fuck was even being asked, went out, he basically just lied and smeared this campaign and said that it would end live service game development in the European Union, and it would stop game developers from making games that people love. Because you have games like Dota, you have games like World of Warcraft, games like RuneScape, that are all live service games that millions and millions of people enjoy. And Moldavia's fig tree told them that if this European Union petition passed, those games would be shuttered in the European Union, which was false. And this led to rampant speculation about why exactly Moldavia's fig tree was saying these things about this petition when he should be smart enough to understand that that is not true. The most common belief was that because he's literally a second generation Blizzard employee. His father was one of the first 10 people to work at Blizzard, and he worked in quality assurance. Now he contends, and he says over and over again, that to even imply that he only got his job at Blizzard because of nepotism undermines his great accomplishment. So you'll be instantly banned if you even dare suggest that nepotism played any role, even a small minor one, because he is such his own person, and his dad being one of the first 10 employees of Blizzard had nothing to do with it whatsoever. However, the conniving, conspiratorial mind would look at this and look at his antagonism towards Stop Killing Games and say, hey, Blizzard is like one of the biggest slop churners in terms of live service games out there. You got fucking StarCraft that you can't play LAN. You got fucking World of Warcraft, one of the original OG live services that basically defined live service as a thing. You got Diablo 3 that was always online. You have Diablo 4 that's always online. You have Diablo Immortal. It's a shitty phone game that's always online. And it's like, they're the king of slop. You got Overwatch, that's always online. You got Hearthstone, that's always online. All these games that you can only play when you have access to a server. And you just so happen to be a second generation employee of this company, or were at some point in time. And your father is one of the founding members. And as far as I know, he might actually have some economic interest in the company still, even though he's no longer working for them. Isn't that a bit strange? So it was a very inopportune thing for him to say for many reasons. Number one, it looks like he's a Nepo baby, even if he gets angry and says that's not true. Number two, the things he said were demonstrably, provably false, so it made him look like an asshole. Number three, the things he said, Ross Scott is like this very, very, like, let me show you a picture of him so you get an idea. He's just this very, like weird guy. He's very, like, nice sounding. He just looks like a nice guy. He's got, like, a friendly face. So you look at this guy and you think, this is like a nice guy. This guy cares about video game preservation. He cares about consumer advocacy. He cares about the people that actually play the fucking games. But then when you listen to Moldavia's fig tree, you see this face, and this long, girly hair, and you know that he's a homosexual furry and a Nepo baby for one of the least likable companies in the industry right now. Activision Blizzard is perhaps, if you were to rank companies by like consumer goodwill, would be near the fucking bottom. They've somehow managed to piss off absolutely everybody through a combination of pro-Chinese, anti-Hong Konger incidents, through all the Diablo Immortal scandal, with Overwatch 2 being a complete fucking flub. I didn't even mention Heroes of the Storm, because nobody remembers that game. But they have so little consumer goodwill that he is like a face for at this point, because he brings it up constantly. I work for Blizzard. You should care about what I say because I work for Blizzard. And then on top of all that, he talks in the most aggravating way possible. Even if it's not filters, even if it's just him putting on like an accentuation where he talks in a really deep register and in this really authoritative radio talk show way, he talks in this super, super refined radio talk show deep voice register. And it's just like, someone listens to him and you listen to the authenticity of this guy and you just think like, wow, you suck. You're a fucking loser. You're a fucking loser. You suck. You suck, terracotta gnome hat. You fucking loser. So Ross, after like months and months and months of trying to ignore the drama, not get into the shit with this fucking Moldavia's fig tree fucking loser, at the end of it, he says like, look, there's a month left to this campaign. It's not even halfway there yet. It took us however many months to get to where we're at now. The odds of us getting 1 million from here are basically none. And I just kind of want to lament this. I want to say I spent my time. I spent my money. I poured my hopes, my dreams, my income, my free time into this thing because I wanted to make things better for people. And it's so frustrating to sit here as the parent of this project and see somebody who has no investment whatsoever in bringing me down sit here and lie about me to tens of thousands of people that actually value his opinion. And when he said that, it clicked. He had tried his best to avoid being a terrible drama monger, because God knows the internet has enough of the likes of me. Terrible, muckraking drama whores. He doesn't need any more me's around. But when he did this, he unwittingly, inadvertently, against his own will perhaps, played the drama card and rolled a fucking 20. A critical success, just by accident, just by attempting to muckrake just a little bit. He rolled a natural 20. And the outcome of that was everybody realizing that this guy fucking sucks. And he's such an asshole. And it doesn't even matter what I'm American. All these people supporting him are fucking Americans. And they said to their European listeners, their European viewers, their European fans, they said, look at this photograph. Every time I do it makes me cry because he's such a dickhead. Now, you don't want this guy to be happy, do you? You got to go sign this petition. And they did. By the tens of thousands, they signed the petition. This was after only a day. It had received almost 100, I think it was like 40,000 a day, leading up to a big push. And this, by the way, to show you not only is this guy just like a normie who likes old video games, I want you to listen to the fucking grace and magnanimity of his response to a question.
Would you be willing to talk or stream with Joshua Moon Null of U.S. Internet Preservation Society, Kiwi Farm fame sometime?
To be absolutely clear, if he had asked me to talk to me, I would tell him, no. Are you retarded? Don't fucking talk to me when this is picking up momentum. You're going to shoot yourself in the fucking foot. Let me rant and rave on my podcast. Let me shill your stupid fucking petition on my site, but don't ever acknowledge me. For the love of God, what's wrong with you? So that would be my response if he had asked me. But here's how he handles the question.
Let's see. He's saying discussion about copyright, censorship, and preservation. I know he's currently promoting Stop Killing Games quite heavily on the forum. Well, okay, first of all, great, and thanks for that. However, this is, I'll just lay out all my thoughts on this. I don't know a lot about kiwi farms, but but me, who doesn't follow this stuff, has heard that it can be associated with stuff like doxing or cyberbullying or stuff like that. And even sometimes with stuff like this, sometimes even both sides can be true, that there are bad actors saying that and there's stuff like that going on or something. And the way I look at it is, my goal here, I'm trying to get numbers to pass the campaign. I don't know much about them, but I know that, like, oh, this one might be kind of a problem. See, me personally, I don't think it's a crime to talk to anyone. I'm in favor of all that. Problem is, a whole lot of people act like it is. And if those numbers of people are gonna just abandon all support for the campaign, if I talk to one person and that outweighs the number of people we pick up, well then strategically it's a poor move to talk to that person, even though I'm not trying to shun discussion with anybody pretty much.
Someone said that's fence sitting in the chat. It's not. It's actually an extremely smart thing to say. He could say, like, look, I'm willing to talk to anybody, but I have to understand my position here and my advocacy and my goals, and I'm not going to let anything compromise my goals, even if it means that I have to restrain myself in some degrees. It's such a perfect response to that. It's actually really incredible. And he has sort of this thing where you look at him and you listen to how he talks, and he's kind of underwhelming. And then when you actually hear him talk about things, you realize that he's a lot smarter than you might give him credit for. And it's sort of like he subverts expectations by actually just being really, really fucking clever, even though he doesn't give himself enough credit. So I didn't even give him enough credit. I made fun of him a little bit in my first stream. I was like, look, he's kind of like dopey and stuff. But no, he's not. He's clever in chat. So it's so diplomatic. It's like a level 10 Riz. Okay, he's got his Riz attribute maxed out. A very uncommon skill these days, by the way. So he acknowledges the forum, thanks you for your support, and says thank you, but no thank you. I gotta fucking listen here. This guy, he's out to kill my petition, and I'm here to get you to sign my petition. And nothing can get in the way of that. We can do these little games of interviews and some such after the petition is signed. That is the correct plan. Okay, imagine, okay, Luke Skywalker, okay, Jedi Ross, trusting the Force, and he's in the trenches of the Death Star, and he knows that Darth Maldavius is in the Death Star. Is he going to have like a little phone call with Han Solo in the middle of this? Can't take no fucking phone call with Han Solo. What did Luke do? He turned off his fucking computer. He turned off the fucking radio. He's like I got to focus on landing this shot. This one in a million, okay? You can't just have a little bit of a fucking phone call in the trenches, okay? That's how it is. That's how it's got to be sometimes. I know that people on the internet communicate entirely through Star Wars analogies, so I figured that would be the most appropriate avenue to express my opinion on this. Next. So his petition took off, hits 1 million. It actually succeeded. I'm skipping over all the fun stuff, really, where it goes from like 50,000 a day, and then June 2nd hits. And by the way, this is completely grassroots. This is just people on YouTube advertising this. But none of the big media outlets are talking about this petition. The closest thing to a big media outlet talking about the Stop Killing Games initiative is the Times of India. And to be quite frank with you, there are some really funny articles that get posted on the Times of India. They seem to be like a Wild West in journalism. Sometimes you see a Times of India article and you're like, that's awesome, actually. I don't know what those Jeets are up to. Anyways, July 2nd was their big coordinated push. They're going to spam the hashtag. They're going to publish videos. Nobody nowhere would not be able to hear in the European Union of the Stop Killing Games petition. And it worked. PewDiePie got in on it. Mutahar got in on it. Lots of big names that have tons and tons of followers got in on it. Ross managed to avoid any bad associations with any bad actors out there. Through his diplomacy, got a conversation with Louis. I like to call him Louis because I think Louis is a nice name, but it's Louis Rossman. to talk, because Louis Rossman's big into right to repair, and Louis had been kind of a jerk to him. He was pretty like rough with him. So like, look, bro, he was basically like Uncle Ben telling Spider-Man that with great power comes great responsibility. He tried to give him that kind of a speech, but like in an asshole kind of way. So he got to talk to Louis Rossman, very endearing, and he got his 1 million signatures. But make no mistake, Moldavius can still win. I'll get into a second. There's also like a renaissance of art. So there's all sorts of fun little drawings and memes that are made on the forum that I've seen spread far and wide. I featured on the Kiwi Farms a video of, oh God, hold up. Let me find this real quick. I know exactly where to look. This, yeah, this was, I think this was made on the forum, and then I featured it.
Hi there, would you like to sign my petition?
Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to.
I saw this get posted by randos on Twitter. So there was like a complete renaissance of art and creativity all around this dichotomy of the evil Moldavius versus the blessed Ross, which was very funny to me, because I think as soon as I saw his video, I'm just like, bro, you got to just make this guy look like a fucking villain. And a petition signature is more about spiting him than doing anything. And I think that was the correct avenue. So while he kept his eye on the prize and like, look, this is a great thing for consumer rights, the people, the actual people, the mob, they knew. You got to get this fucker.
Sign my petition.
Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to.
Awesome. Anyways, here's another one. Why would that happen? I'll tell you why. If a person has ugly thoughts, it begins to show on the face. And when that person has ugly thoughts every day, every week, every year, the face gets uglier and uglier until it is so ugly you can hardly bear to look at it. A person who has good thoughts cannot ever be ugly. He can have a wonky nose or a crooked mouth and a double chin and stick out teeth. But if you have good thoughts, they will shine out of your face like sunbeams, and you will always look lovely. Oh, that's quite nice, chat. That's quite nice indeed. Here's PewDiePie endorsing Stop Killing Games. This was in a community made. He posted a video, and a bunch of people in the chat or the comments were like, bro, you gotta cover this shit. We gotta kick fucking Moldavius in his fucking nutsack. He's like, all right, well, I'll do a video about it. He did do a video on the second of it. But he says, thank you all for the amazing support in my recent videos. I love how I can just nerd out and share whatever with you guys. In the comments, I've been seeing some of you mention Stop Killing Games. I want to say I 100%, and this is a Swedish national, okay? So his of all the creators in the world, his signature and opinion actually matters. So as a proud Swede, he says, I 100% support this. Bork bork. It ties in perfectly with what I talked about in my video. Ownership over software in the games we buy. Strongly encourage you to sign this. And then he did publish his video. He did endorse the petition. And it was a total Ross victory. Kind of. So here's the thing. The way these European initiatives work is that because they actually do compel the European Council or Commission to enact policy changes, they actually audit the petition. Now, I want you to consider this for a second. In the European Union, when you sign a petition, you have to supply your government ID, and then they will literally send the petition signatures. Like if there's a bunch, like 100,000 signatures from Finland, they send the list of signatures and their ID to Finland and say, tell us which ones are fake. And then Finland says these, 20% of signatures are fake. That is how the European Union validates a petition. In the United States of America, we can't even pretend to check ID because that's somehow racist. I just want to draw a comparison between a sane world where you can actually validate the results of democratic processes and an insane world where there's absolutely no checks and balances because we just assume that black people are too fucking stupid to go get an ID at the DMV. That's what's happening right now. So, as I was indicating, they are going to thoroughly evaluate the results of this petition. To see if it actually crossed that 1 million signature threshold. So, and obviously this gained a lot of international attention, so people are going to try to game the system, even though they were told explicitly by Ross not to do that because it does not help in any way, shape, or form. And it just creates ambiguity on if the results are positive. A lot of Moldavius stormtroopers were out firing shots at the movement, saying that it was botted, that it's all fake, because it was receiving hundreds of thousands of signatures a day. On July 2nd, it got like 150,000 signatures. So like, no, this is fake. This is bullshit. When it gets audited, you're not going to have enough. So although Moldavius has been laid low, seemingly, it's like at the end of a horror movie. Okay, the evil villain is supposedly dead. He fell or something. Wait a second. Just because Moldavius is there laying on the ground, you can't just assume that Moldavius is dead, bro. You can't just like walk away like mission accomplished. You got to make sure that fucker's dead. You got to drive him over in your car or get like a bat or something, start hitting him until he stops twitching. Like, you got to do something. You can't just assume that he's fucking dead. So they're trying to get 1,200,000 signatures, which I think they're actually pretty close to getting already. But basically the EC has, because it already crossed the million, they're saying they're going to start preemptively auditing signatures to try and see, because they still got time left. So the EC guys told them, they're like, we're going to start looking to see how many of these are fake, so you have an idea of how many more you need. But long story short, if you haven't signed, you can still sign. You can still get it. You can be the one, okay? The 1 million signatures, they've got Moldavius on the ground, but you can still get up. There's still time for a sequel, unless you make sure that the deed is done. You don't want no cliffhanger. You don't want no post-credit sequence where Moldavius retches his hand out from the ground. Okay, you got to make sure this shit's over. Yeah, you'll sign it. Yeah, motherfucker. Real Troy Durant. That's right. You got to sign the petition.
Hi there. Would you like to sign my petition?
Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to.
Anyways, so I got the 1 million signatures. And by the way, I literally just stole this guy's meme and posted it on Twitter with the message. I'm so proud. This fucking stolen ass meme from the forum got 4.3 million views and 105,000 likes. So just do the math here real quick. I'm pulling my calculator. 4.3 even. 4.3 million. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Divided by 107,000. So every 40 views, every 40 people who saw this message saw his face crying. They just saw this guy's face crying. They don't know what the fuck is going on. They don't know what a stop killing games is. They don't know what a million means. They just see this guy crying and they're like, yeah, that's a winner. That's a winner. That's all it takes for 1 out of 40 people to be like, yeah, fuck that. Fuck that guy. That's all it took. I don't need no context here. I'm just liking this one. By the way, just as a little experiment, because when I bought the gold badge for the USIPS.org Twitter account, it gave me a bunch of ad credits. And I have never done any kind of advertising campaign ever. So, when I did my stream last time, I said, like, he's talking to all these English-speaking people about this petition. And it's like, no country except Ireland speaks English anymore. He's got to reach out to creators that are not English-speaking to appeal to them. So I literally put my money where my mouth is, and I spent $500 in X advertising credits. I posted a tweet in Polish, and it just says like, Fortnite, EA, FIFA, Diablo 4, these games can disappear in a second. Sign this petition. That's basically what it says. And then it's a link. And this tweet got, because I paid for it with the ad credits, for $500, I got 1.5 million impressions and 3,000 clicks. And then I even posted this and I said, look, this was my experiment. This is what came up. And I even got people saying that they had never seen this. Nice to know it was you. I signed it from your ad. Isn't that nice? I got a guy who signed this petition because of my advertisement. So, and he's Polish. He's even got like actually that's Czech. That's an advertisement from a cartoon from Soviet Czechoslovakia. I know what that is. Anyways. So I had a little experiment, and I was positively rewarded for it, and I was very pleased. And then what's funny is that if you actually go to this tweet and read the replies, like this got 1.5 million views, it got a bookmark, 1,000 likes, and all sorts of Polish memes and people talking about it and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. So I did my part. I advertised it, and I literally tried experimenting with ads to see how that works and stuff, because it was at no cost to me that I hadn't already spent. So I thought it was cool. Why Poland? Because I looked at I'll show you actually. So this is the progress page. They have the same confetti thing that the Kiwi Farms has, by the way. It's the same exact mod. If it wasn't the 4th of July, you would see only the blue and yellow stars, which I thought was very pretty. But at the time, by the way, almost 1% of Finland has signed this fucking petition. I'm mostly concerned about that one. 50,000 polls, 0.9%. So if you were to line up 100 Finnish people, sorry, I said polls. If you were to line up 100 Finnish people, there's a good chance that one of them has signed this petition. Isn't that weird? That's a lot of Finns care about video game consumer rights, apparently. So, yeah, I looked at this map of Sweden because PewDiePie is probably really popular in Sweden. But at the time, Germany was the highest per capita, and then Poland was like way behind all the rest. It was like fighting like France. I'm like, that's stupid. There are all sorts of fucking games that Polish people love. They all play that fucking Rocket League game. That's like a live service. They should want Rocket League to be a LAN game. So I said, you know what? The Poles are probably and the Poles are the people who are least likely to speak English. I know that a lot of them do speak English. I'm just saying that, like, as far as bilingualism goes, Poland's pretty low in the European Union. So it's like, I feel like Poland's the appropriate market. And I talked to somebody who said all the chuds in Poland use Twitter. So I was like, hell yeah, that's my audience. I want chudly, monolingual Polish people, young, between the ages of 18 and 32. That was my demographic. Apparently it works. Post it in Italian, maybe. Italian's super low. And Italy is actually so low per capita. It's down there with like Greece and Malta and shit. I'm just like, maybe Italians just have like a really high median age, or I don't know what the fuck's up with that. I'm actually really curious why Italy seems so disconnected from this. Like, what happens in Italy? Do they play video games? Do they watch YouTube? Do they just make cheese and olive oil? Is that all they do? That's possible. They only make cheese and olive oil in Italy. So I don't know. I found that personally fascinating. And then as a consequence, by the way, he's been constantly complaining in his Discord about brigading and people trying to ruin his life. Apparently he got swatted. Obviously I don't condone that in any way. No, we should swat him. But he's been saying that people have been brigading his games, and yeah, there's that one game that did get brigaded, but that got like excluded. The other one was that he worked for this group, and he said that his group's games were being targeted by the hate mob. But then the actual Pirate Nation, the actual real pro-piracy Twitter account, like demonstrably proved that those games weren't getting review bombed. He's just lying about it to his Discord. But he said this. Thor, how did the meeting go? I really hope they liked what you've been working on in secret. And he says, the project has been canceled. The hate machine started attacking all the games being published by Off-Brand. I stepped down to save them the headache. It was an ARG I built over the last month. So he's trying to say, like, that he was so, like, in the last month, while you gamers have been signing the kill all video game in actuality petition, and you've been signing the more government regulation petition, I've been building my own Diablo clone, but it's been canceled because the kill all video games hate mob came after my company and they've canceled my project. Whichever one I don't believe. But I do believe, I don't believe that he stepped down, but I do believe that they allowed him to step down because he's a toxic He's toxic. He's toxic. Why is he toxic? And what's funny is, let me get a drink and I'll explain my thoughts here. Hold on. he's had weeks, a full week at this point, to formulate a response to the hate mob. But the thing is, he's such an arrogant prick that I think he doesn't have the humility to even address this sensibly. I feel like all he has to do is go out and say something to this effect. Like, look, I care about video game preservation. I was definitely very mean to Ross for no reason. You know, he can even post it and say, like, I was rude talking about Ross, but I was speaking to my audience performatively. I did not mean to offend him. I did not mean to try and hurt his campaign. I got some things wrong, but look, overall, I'm just concerned about the effects government regulation has on the video game industry. And I hope that whatever the outcome of this is, it positively benefits gamers. You can just a nice little tweet, a little bit wordy, apologies where they're owed, and say nothing at all. Really, just say nothing at all. Just say, oh, look, you know, I didn't mean to be such a dick. I was just talking to my stream audience, but you know, I hope this works out. I'm not anti-gamer, anti-consumer rights. Don't get me wrong, but he's too gay and retarded and furry and arrogant and smug and a nepo baby to bite the bullet and just, you know, deal with the fact that literally hundred. Imagine how bruised a narcissist ego must be to be so annoying that hundreds of thousands of people can't stand you just by how you talk. They don't even give a shit about what you do or you know, what you say. They just think you sound like a fag and your shit's all retarded. Hundreds of thousands of people think you talk like a fag and your shit's all retarded. And what's funny is how many times I check my notifications and I see like Clara trans flag liked my tweets about Jason. Clara trans flag thinks you're a fag and your shit's all retarded, okay? It might be a time to step back and reproach your situation with the humility and grace that the severity of it requires of you, all right? Okay. I'll just read the responses and then I'm done with that. Hakati Sketch says, genuinely a curious question, but wouldn't it overall be less of a headache for you to try and contact Ross and work with him on this? Yeah, no shit it would be. My thought process is pretty much assist with getting the initiative in a state that could potentially do good if people, this guy might be Jewish. This guy might be Jewish. I'm now more than halfway through this message and I'm thinking this guy is thinking really outside the box here. Assist them with getting the initiative in a state that can potentially do good, and people aren't going to listen and push for laws anyways. Wouldn't it be a good idea to assist with clearing up the miscommunication potential? That's exactly what I said, Akata Sketch. Sir Maldavius replies and goes, not interested. The initiative will clearly pass the voting round. Leave it to the legal process to decide it further. Aries replies and says, his tag is love smut, by the way, in case you forgot that these are Discord messages. Apparently you can just make your tag love smut. Once the voting round passes, are you going to make a video expressing in detail examples of what might be challenging for devs to do and your concerns in a more formal way? Less about how you feel about it and more about facts, examples, etc., and what it means to make MMOs or any live service games functional. I am interested in seeing the dev side of things and less about the drama and opinions. Everybody has opinions, and saying them doesn't bring much value past a certain point. This guy is drunk. He's like missing keys left and right. Past a certain point, but that knowledge, however, would be worth gold. So this guy loves smut, clearly a tranny, probably fucked up on something like pills because he can't type, and he's a genuine fan of Thor. Let's see what Thor has to say. After it gets to that point, I will not be engaging. The amount of horrific attacks on me is more than enough to stay away. If it was just disagreeing with my stance, it would be fine. So far, we've had wellness checks called to my house. I've been swatted, and thousands of people are trying to cancel every aspect of my life. They've also tried to call me a pedophile, say that I sexually abuse our rescue ferrets. Tried to call the state to say we hoarded animals and other heinous shit. Stop killing games as an initiative I disagree with. The supporting base as a movement, I think, is absolutely fucking vile. And by the way, you know how I went off with my lovely idealism? I said, like, look, this is what he could say to try and diffuse the situation and look more reasonable and amicable and like he just had good intentions. This is literally the exact opposite of that. He says, you know, look, I have my disagreements with the initiative, but it's the gamers who are the fucking vile freaks. Fuck those gamers. Those 1.2 million people that signed the petition and the millions more outside the European Union that supported it and spread the news of it. Fuck you. You suck. Wow, I wonder what that's going to do. Do you think that's going to, A, diffuse the situation and get people to reconsider spreading hateful messages towards Jason, or B, inflame their passions even more and make it a direct personal issue with them? I wonder what it's going to be, Jason. Maybe that was not the right thing to say. I get it. It's hard to be like in the wrong really publicly and to actually come out and be like, you know, I was wrong. It's hard to do that, especially when you're an egomaniacal maniac like me. But at a certain point, you know, there's crow to be eat, and it don't stop piling up. That crow don't go away just because you want it to go away. It just keeps getting more crow. Eventually, you walk outside, you look at that plate, silver platter, got like 40 different crows on it. You're like, God damn, that's a lot of fucking crow to eat. I don't know if I can eat all that anymore. I could have eaten that first crow, but now there's so much crow, I just can't fucking stomach that shit. I can't even stomach looking at it, to be honest with you.
Thank you for watching this clip. This is Perspicacity. Remember to like and subscribe.